welcome to FunnelFox webinar. And today we have a podcast with a wonderful guest, Lucas. Lucas is a VP of Paddle, and we'll be talking about payments, how AI is shaping mobile app market, and how to survive in this turbulent time. Welcome, Lucas. Thank you for joining us. I'll let you introduce yourself and introduce the Paddle.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Andrey. It's great to be here, and good to be here with you for the next hour or so, talking about Web2App and payments and AI. So yeah, I'm Lucas. I am VP of Product here at Paddle. I have been at Paddle for about 5.5 years now, so I've been on the journey with the business, and very much been front and center to the change and the sort of shift in dynamics in the mobile app ecosystem over the last 2 or 3 years. And as a business, we're very interested and very active in the space, working with mobile apps on their web payments, and we work very closely with you guys at FunnelFox and Adapty, of course. For those who don't know, Paddle is an end-to-end billing and payments infrastructure platform. So we enable companies to capture revenue all over the world, and power all of their payments and billing. And crucially, we do that under a merchant of record model, which means we handle all of the global tax compliance, fraud, chargebacks, billing compliance under one wrapper. And in a way, what that means is it basically means we're operationalizing all of the architecture of selling on the web, and we're providing that to our customers via one integration. So it's a reseller model, which is very similar to how the App Store operates. When you sell your product through the App Store, you're effectively reselling your product through Apple. And when you sell through Paddle on the web, you're doing the same thing in terms of the liability that we take on from a transactional perspective. So for us, one of the reasons we're so active in the mobile app community is because it's a natural jump for mobile app companies to make when they go from App Store to web, to use a merchant of record, because they've used one on the App Store. So let's use one on the web as well. And they avoid having to take on a lot of that operational burden around sales tax and compliance, etc. So yeah, we're a London-based company. We work with a little over 10,000 digital product companies around the world. Many of them are SaaS businesses, but many of them are also mobile apps selling on the web. And yeah, very happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we have been working with together with Paddle for 2 years already. Probably
I think it's about
more.
that. It's been quite some time now. Yeah.
And yeah, we I think we together went a long journey with increasing adoption of Web2App and web payments for mobile apps. And thank you for being with us in this journey, because it's you contribute a lot in this awareness of Web2App and how to build web payments and payment infrastructure. I would like to dive deeper into merchant of records, because sometimes we just get these questions: what's a merchant of record? You already covered that a little bit. And what's the main difference between merchant of record and regular acquirer or payment providers like Stripe, for example? What's the difference? Main difference?
Yeah, so the primary difference is that as a merchant of record, we are a reseller of your product. And what that means in practice is that we take on liability for the transaction. So when you're selling on the web and a transaction takes place, we are liable for all of the compliance and regulatory obligations that sit around that transaction. So when we sell your product, you're effectively selling it on behalf. We're selling it on behalf of you. The look and feel of the checkout experience and the payments experience is not dissimilar to how it works with a traditional payment gateway or PSP. There are some differences. There are some things that we have to include on the checkout that you have a bit more flexibility with a PSP type of product or a direct payment integration. But the benefit is that you don't have to think about anything around sales tax, around compliance, and you can just get on with growing your business. So that's the fundamental difference between a direct integration with a PSP or a payment gateway and a merchant of record. So what we do is we actually sit one level above. So we integrate with the PSPs under the hood. So we're still processing your payment in that manner. And one of the benefits of that is that we also do payment orchestration and payment routing out of the box. So we're always routing to the PSPs that we believe are most likely to process your transaction successfully based on a number of different attributes. But fundamentally, it's about how do we take on a bunch of that operational burden as Paddle so you don't have to think about it when you're selling on the web. And so a great example is sales tax. Based on the location of your user and the product you're selling, we have a very complex sort of database or algorithm that tells us what tax to apply. We apply the tax, we capture it as a company, and then we remit all of that on your behalf. So you can sell all around the world without having to set up entities, without having to register for with local tax offices, et cetera, et cetera. So fundamentally, the difference is it's a reseller model. It's a different type of legal model. It's a different type of liability as well. We take on more liability as a business, so you can freely sell and grow around the world with ease. That's fundamentally the difference.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as you mentioned, that I just want to emphasize that it's like the best example of merchant of record for mobile apps. Probably it's like familiar brands like Apple with the App Store and Google. They are like merchant of records as well. Yeah,
they are indeed, correct.
Yeah, because they do all this operational and compliance stuff on their own. Like, and you don't need to take care of that. Just like upload app and sell subscription. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and orchestration part is like I think it's a big deal and a big thing. And probably it's like the most overlooked thing for mobile app developers who start working with web payments. And it can affect a lot, like performance of the funnel, performance of web payments. And as far as I understood, you have your own orchestration, and you can provide like local payment methods depending on the market. So for app developers, it could be also like go-to-market strategy, a go-to-market tool. Yeah, for example, if you want to sell subscription in Latam, for example, in Brazil, you need to integrate these local payment methods and do the stuff. But with Paddle, you can just like take it easy.
Yeah, exactly. So the best way to think about that is that we're optimizing our payment stack on your behalf effectively, right? And there are two primary metrics that are really important for a mobile app selling on the web. The first one is checkout conversion. The second one is payment acceptance. We can talk about retention as well, but that's further down the funnel. Now, local payment methods are a great way to drive checkout conversion because you're providing the buyer or the user with the payment method that they're most likely to pay with. If you're not providing that, they're more likely to drop off at checkout. So there's quite a lot of evidence to support the fact that local payment methods will increase the propensity of a user to purchase at the checkout. And so we integrate with many different local payment methods. Again, we're abstracting that complexity away, so you don't have to go and integrate them with yourselves. You just integrate with Paddle once and you get all of it out of the box. But yeah, we have local payment methods all across Europe. We have them in India. We're launching Pix recurring in Brazil pretty soon as well. So we have a bunch of recurring payment methods in some of those markets where payment methods are really common. And so that will impact and improve checkout conversion. It also improves acceptance and authorization as well to some degree. But then what also, as you mentioned, improves acceptance and authorization, or the likelihood that a payment actually succeeds, is what we call payment orchestration. And there are other companies that do payment orchestration. We're not the only one, but we provide payment orchestration, again, out of the box via that single integration. So under the hood, based on a bunch of attributes of the transaction, so the type of transaction, the price point, the location, the product, the buyer profile, all of these things alter in very, very small ways, but alter the likelihood for that payment to be successful, right, with the acquiring bank. And so we then route under the hood to the various channels and payment flows to maximize acceptance rates. So that's our fundamental goal, right? It's based on improving checkout conversion and improving payment acceptance and authorization, which ultimately make you more money. It's as simple as that, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that this is the beauty of the solution and the approach with merchant of records, that you as an app developer, as a merchant, you don't need to take care of this like technical stuff and like thinking of like how the orchestration works and what the local payment methods you need to integrate, how to integrate it, like etc. So it's like it could be done for you just under the hood. So it could be like seamless, absolutely seamless experience for you, which is great. Yeah. I just want to mention that, guys, you can drop your questions also in the chat, and we will cover them on the go. And feel free to ask or comment anything. Lucas, you mentioned conversion rates and checkout flow. What's the best practices and how to optimize the payment flow to increase the conversion rates? What's
Cool.
your
There's a lot of things here. A lot of things. I'd love your perspective too, but I can start. I think one of the interesting things about the mobile app space, I think, is that a lot of mobile apps have very much a performance marketing mindset. And so they're approaching web payments with an experimental mindset. Like, how can I tweak and optimize and change little things to incrementally improve the numbers that are going to make a difference to my business? And so I think I think when these people or these personas come to the web, they see opportunity because there's so much flexibility that you have on the web, right? Around the checkout experience, the paywall experience, even billing model flexibility, which we can touch on. But in its very simplest form, and we can go into a lot of detail here, but in its very simplest form, the thing that I probably see the most people forgetting about initially is just optimizing everything for mobile, right? Like, especially in a web to app context where you're driving traffic typically from some sort of social media ad on your phone, and your buyer profile is 99% of the time using their mobile device, you need to be surfacing a checkout experience that lends itself to a high conversion rate on mobile, right? So lengthy card forms are not a good idea. What you want is to surface wallet payments, and you know this, Andrey, but Apple Pay, Google Pay, right? We're even seeing app companies now not even offer card forms at all. They're just offering like wallet payment options at checkout. And so completely optimizing your checkout with a mobile first mindset, I think, is the primary thing that you should be doing. I'm sure you have thoughts on this as well, but that's probably where I'd start.
Yeah. And just wanted to mention that you did a great job with optimizing the flow on your checkout flow, that like you optimize this like flow for Apple Pay specifically.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, it's increased hope a lot of app developers to increase the conversion rate on the checkout flow, just providing like
it can increase it. I mean, it varies between company, but we've seen some customers get an increase of over 10% on checkout conversion just through adopting like an express Apple Pay experience where one-click Apple Pay, Face ID, transactions processed. The other thing that I think is an increasingly that we as Paddle are spending more time thinking about this, and I'd love your view on this as well, Andrey, but is I think a lot of people come from this world where the paywall and the checkout are two different things. So they think paywall is that, checkout is that, but actually it's just a monetization experience.
Yeah.
And the paywall and the checkout are just sort of two steps in one experience. And I think we're seeing those two steps come even closer together, right? Like I think we're seeing a world where the paywall and the checkout effectively get blended into one experience, right? Where the pricing plans are articulated and communicated to the user, and then the payment experience is properly embedded in that paywall experience. And I think we're moving very quickly towards that being like best practice as well.
Yeah. The first example of this approach, as far as I remember, it was Noom, who moved the checkout flow to the paywall, and it was like a kind of like genius experiment. Who said that it should be different step? It's like old approach from e-commerce, probably, when you go to checkout and see the cart with all items that you purchase. But for mobile apps and for Web2App flow, it could be different. It could be like seamless, and just one click, one button, Apple Pay on the paywall. It could be enough, and increase conversion rates. And I remember that this experiment showed like for different projects it was like plus 20-30% conversion rate if you put Apple Pay button on a paywall.
The thing that we always think about, because we've been around for 12 or 13 years, as you know, so we work with lots of big SaaS companies and web-based products as well. And in the last 2 or 3 years, as more and more mobile app companies are doing Web2App and now app to web, a lot more mobile first companies. The biggest difference is, I think, the mindset of the user. So when you're in like a SaaS world, you typically have a well-researched user on their computer or on their desktop, laptop, right? Who has a pretty high intent to buy. They've probably gone to your landing page, they've read a bunch of stuff, they want to sign up. So their intent to buy is high. When you're thinking about Web2App, right? And I'm preaching to the converted here, you know this very, very well, but you're typically dealing with people who are clicking on an ad on Instagram and who are going through a monetization experience on a bus on the way home from university. And so their intent to purchase at the start of the funnel is far lower than what it is in a typical sort of SaaS or e-commerce world. And so every bit of friction that you introduce into the monetization experience introduces risk into the purchase. So the less friction you can have, the more likely you are to convert that user into a paying customer. And so like, I think up the funnel from the checkout as well, paywall, social proof, how you build out the funnel, how you drive intent is all super important. And that's kind of the premise that you guys operate on, right? Is how can you use funnels and pre-purchase experiences to drive intent and to maximize conversion rates and LTV.
Yeah, this is what there's a question I was about to ask you. What's the difference between different verticals? Yeah, it's mobile app market is quite different in terms of like intention and motivation of users, because it's mostly like paid user acquisition. So the user may have like a low motivation to purchase, so you need to take care of like frictionless payment flow. Yeah. And next, I would like to discuss with you like the pricing strategies and how to what's your like point on pricing optimization? Do you have any like observation from your side?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I think the first thing I would say is that a lot of mobile app developers probably don't appreciate the pricing model flexibility that you get on the web that you don't get on the app stores. Now, the app stores have come a long way. They're much more flexible than what they used to be. But we're seeing a lot of mobile app companies explore different pricing models, explore different billing models as a way to drive conversion and LTV. And there are a few good examples of that. I think paid trials is something that we're seeing a lot of at the moment. So we've had a lot of demand for paid trials as opposed to a free trial model. Paid trials basically increases the level of commitment that the user has as they're going into a trial. So you might get less sort of conversions into the trial first. But what you do tend to get is people who stick around for longer, who have higher intent, who probably have who have higher LTV. And one of the benefits of paid trials as well is it also forces people to give you a card, which validates that the payment method is going to be successful at renewal as well. So what you're doing here is capturing an audience that is much higher intent, that you have more confidence in from a repeat sort of renewal perspective. And so paid trials is something that we've had a lot of demand for, and we're seeing a high degree of adoption. We just launched paid trials pretty recently. We're seeing a high degree of adoption there. I think another thing that is important here is experimentation. We see a lot of people experimenting with pricing on paywalls. And the web gives you a lot of opportunity to experiment and localize pricing as well. So making sure that you're localizing based on region, based on willingness to pay. Again, it's a lever that isn't completely appreciated, because if you take a US dollar base price and simply convert into every other currency from a USD price, you aren't accounting for differences in willingness to pay or purchasing power around the world. So the most successful companies are experimenting with different price points, not just at a currency level, but also at a region level, because you know a lot of countries use the euro, and there's a big gap in purchasing power between a lot of countries who use the euro So people in France and Germany have a higher propensity to pay than people do in some of those Eastern European countries. That's just a reality. And so I think pricing, not just at a currency level, but on a regional level, is really important as well. And then I think the third thing that we're seeing quite a lot of is sort of discount experimentation. So, you know, how do you think about the concept of reducing a price versus applying a discount? There's a mental shift that people have with discounts, where you can say, you know, it's $20, I'm going to reduce it to $10, or you can say I'm going to provide the price at $20 but with a 50% discount. The way people perceive a discounted price is that they're getting something that's a great offer, and
probably as well.
Exactly, yeah. And so it can increase the likelihood. So there are a few examples of pricing things that people are testing. Like, what do you have a perspective on this as well? Like, you guys power paywall, so I'm sure you see a lot of this too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. In addition to paid trial, for example, why it works also very well, because it's a good way to optimize your pixel very quickly, because the price for paid trial is could be like $1, for example, $3. It's cheap for users, so you can have more purchases with it quickly, and you can send the signals of the purchase to Meta, and Meta will optimize the campaign and pixel very quickly. Yeah, this is some drawbacks of a paid trial as well. So it can lead to more chargebacks and just bad reviews from users. But it's it should be balanced. It should be balanced and clear in terms of terms of subscriptions, terms of this paid trial. Another thing is introductory offers, which is quite popular practice right now, when you provide the discount for first billing cycle. So, for example, if you sell 1 month subscription, the first month will be with a discount, and other billing cycles will be for full price. Yeah, there are a lot of things. And regarding pricing localization, it's one of the top growth driver among our customers. And we see this strong correlation when they start localizing pricing. They start growing very, very quickly. But there is a tricky fact with the localization that you need to take care of, that the conversion rate in some regions could be lower. So, for example, if you sell your subscription in the US, in Canada, or Australia, there is all dollars, and if you sell it for the US dollar, it's just like the dollar sign. And people in Canada, for example, they think that okay, it's it's a Canadian dollar, which is cheap. So, for example, if a monthly subscription price is $10, it's quite cheap for Canadian. And they think that they anticipate that it would be Canadian dollars, and they purchase subscription. And then they found out that it was USD,
but when it hits the bank account,
it's already made. And then when you localize the pricing, you need to change the sign that it's Canadian dollar. And Canadian dollar converted to USD would be $20 already Canadian. It's already expensive for users, and you expect some low conversion rate. So you need to experiment with that very carefully.
I think one of the other things that's a really interesting point. I hadn't thought about that before, but it's a good point. One of the things you alluded to before, I think, is a really important point, right? And that I think we're going to get onto compliance maybe at some point. But what's really interesting is the importance of measuring the full funnel, measuring outcomes of the full funnel, because it's very easy to get obsessed with checkout conversion and to be optimizing your pricing to the nth degree purely through the lens of checkout conversion, and getting into territory where you're starting to get an uplift in checkout conversion, but the compromise or the trade-off is you get either a high chargeback rate or you get a reduction or an increase in churn, right? So you can increase the amount that's coming into the funnel here, but what you're also doing is creating a hole in the funnel over here. And that's usually driven by pricing tactics that can be a little bit dark or misleading. And we've seen this play out before, where people go, oh, wow, on the web, there's so much flexibility. I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, I can do that. And people get obsessed with checkout conversion, and they don't realize that actually a lot of those users are churning out. And so I think it's just a nice reminder when we talk about pricing tactics that, you know, the price that someone is paying like doesn't just impact their conversion rate, it also impacts the propensity to stay with you over a longer period of time. So you could actually be denting LTV, but at the same time seeing an increase in conversion rate. So I think, you know, I always say this to app developers, it's important to measure conversion rate because it is a critical metric, but it's important to measure it in the context of the full funnel and thinking about and making sure you're not compromising down here just to have a benefit over here.
It's so true. Yeah, it's like I think it's a quite a frequent mistake of growth managers and user managers. So they measure everything by like conversion rates or CPA, cost per action, cost per purchase, for example, and just avoiding like or like missing like refunds, for example. You need to calculate refunds as well, because if you mislead users on a paywall and calculate on conversion rates, you probably like going down and lower your LTV with the refunds, for example, or chargebacks. So it's important to calculate all together the whole funnel. Yeah, it's like really interesting points. Do you can you say any like the main things that most app developers or any like merchants overlooked and when they start selling on web? What's the main things that they missed at the very beginning?
Yeah, I think like in terms of tactics and strategies and how to be successful on the web, I think people have a tendency to overlook retention mechanics in favor of conversion mechanics. So most people tend to spend a lot more time thinking about the paywall on the checkout, right? And make things seamless and low friction and high converting. And they don't spend as much time thinking about how do I keep my users, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's because in the app stores, you don't have a lot of flexibility around retention. Like subscription cancellation is all done out of your settings in your app. It's a relatively straightforward process. They make it easy, and that's great. Like like from a consumer transparency perspective, making it easy to cancel is important. But retention is also on the web something that you have a lot of flexibility around, and you can learn a lot from. And so, you know, one of the things that we have a bunch of retention capability at Paddle, but a cancellation flow is a great experience that you can deploy on the web, which can have a really material impact on churn. And the reason for that is for a few reasons. Firstly, if you have a cancellation flow, what I mean by that is when someone goes to cancel, you can provide an experience where you try and salvage that user by shifting them to a new plan. So as opposed to canceling completely, you can take them from a premium plan to a standard plan. You're still protecting some LTV in that scenario. You can offer them a discount as like a way to retain the user. You can offer them, listen, stay with us for another couple of months. I'll give you a discount, and see if that drives engagement in the right direction. And super importantly, you can also learn a lot, right? Because when people cancel and you take them on an experience similar to what you guys do in the funnels, right, where you're learning about the user, you can learn about what do they not like about your product, like why are they leaving, and that's a really great way to inform product roadmap. It's a great way to learn more about your users, and so all of these things can incrementally add up and sort of reduce the, you know, we call it the leaky bucket, right? Plugging a hole in the leaky bucket. And it's both strategic and tactical when you think about like the deployment of the cancellation experience. But you have a lot more flexibility to do those sorts of things on the web. Now, there are some regulations in place in consumer protection that require you to enable like one-click cancellation experiences, when you can embed that into a cancellation flow. So always have the option to cancel as you move through the flow. But when you look at it on a global scale, there's a ton of capability there that you're able to do that can make a meaningful difference to retention. So when you're thinking about, hey, I should increase conversion by 10%, well, also, why don't you increase retention by 10%? Because that's going to give you a great LTV outcome as well. And so I think that thinking about the end of the funnel and not just the front of the funnel is probably where I see most people overlook things in terms of sort of tactics and strategies on the web.
Yeah. You mentioned good topic, the compliance.
Yep.
Let's talk about a bit about compliance.
Mm-hmm.
What's like the main thing that mobile app developers should be aware of in terms of compliance? What they need to do to be compliant, whether they use merchant of record or just web payments, etc.
Yeah. Compliance is a really interesting space and really critical for the success and sustainability of a consumer mobile company. When you think about the most successful consumer mobile companies out there, they're all maintaining a pretty high bar of compliance, and that's one of the things that Paddle on a merchant of record helps with as well. I think if I speak at a very, very high level, and we can go into some detail, but from a high level perspective, the direction of travel is that attention on consumer protection is increasing, not decreasing. So more governments and regulators are choosing to stamp out or regulate against deceptive or misleading practices that are designed to mislead or deceive consumers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more important than ever, I think, to keep compliance top of mind when you're building out these different monetization experiences. So what I mean by that is like dark patterns, for example. Dark patterns have been a UX principle for a long time, but dark patterns are increasingly being the target of regulation because consumers are being misled by a lot of companies, right? That are bill shock, seeing prices that they didn't expect to pay, not seeing renewal prices, all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of examples of sort of UX tactics and dark patterns on the web that you need to steer clear of. And it can get you into trouble, both from a regulatory perspective. Yeah. So the regulators can very much come after you for different dark patterns and when you're not obliging by consumer protection regulations, but also the card schemes. So Visa and MasterCard, when you have a high chargeback rate, it usually indicates some sort of bad behavior or dark pattern. It doesn't always, but it can do. And in those scenarios, that can compromise your relationship with payments partners like Paddle or Stripe or whoever. So I think it's very much about building a sustainable business, having a user base that trusts you, right? Having a brand that is perceived positively in the market also drives word of mouth. And I think compliance is the thing that binds all of that stuff together, right? At the end of the day, the reason the regulators are choosing to intervene in these scenarios is to protect consumers. And a happy consumer is a happy customer, and a happy customer will stay with you for a long period of time. So I fundamentally believe that the most successful consumer mobile companies are compliant, right? They think about sustainability, or they think about compliance as a key pillar of a sustainable business. And so I think it's more important than ever to be aware of the different regulations around the world. And I won't don't get me wrong, it's hard. Like it is hard because there are so many different regulations. Compliance is more fragmented than it's ever been. Like we have different rules and regulations in US states, right? Like the click to cancel rule in California. We have different countries in the EU that are deploying sort of different degrees of consumer protection. Germany is very, very active in consumer protection. And so you're suddenly like trying to deal with all of these regulations across many, many jurisdictions that are different in nature, right? But all sort of pointed towards the same thing. So there's a whole lot of stuff to unpack in there. But like broadly, I think the buckets are like UX and monetization experiences that don't mislead consumers, both from a acquisition perspective. So avoiding misleading dark patterns in the paywall and checkout experience, and then also making it easy to cancel, like something that governments are really cracking down on, which I think we can discuss, is the click to cancel stuff. It should be just as easy to cancel as it is to sign up. That's probably fair when you think about consumers, right? And then also things like pre-billing notifications. So making sure that you're sending the right renewal reminders at the right time based on the law in certain countries. So yeah, a lot in there to unpack, but broadly, I think the message is a government or regulatory attention on protecting consumers is increasing, not decreasing. And that means that app companies need to be more aware, not less aware of the implications of not meeting those regulatory standards.
Yeah, I think it's like the one of the like also most important point to use merchant of record, because you don't need to take care of and deal with all this compliance stuff, because it's like it's too overwhelmed.
It's our job. Our job is to deal with it.
Yeah, because like there is a like different regulators in different countries, even within one country, different regulators, and they usually don't provide guidelines. Yeah, it could be just law that's like with broad statement, and you need to figure out how to be compliant with this law. It's a big deal.
Exactly.
Yeah, and as we can see, the area of Web2App and monetizing mobile application on web is like started regulated, and we saw like this case of FTC against a bunch of mobile apps companies that like it seems that it's like the regulations become more stronger. What's your perspective? What do you think? Where we're going, like in terms of compliance, in terms of regulations for like for web payments and Web2App?
Yeah, I think I won't comment on the cases directly, but thematically, right? I think the activity in the space is a nice reminder that the regulators aren't just writing rules, they're also acting on those rules. And the fact that they're actually engaging with some of these companies, I think is a pretty powerful message to the market and to the industry that, you know, you ought to take subscription compliance seriously. You ought to take consumer protection seriously, because, you know, we're not afraid to intervene if we feel like it's the right thing to do. So I think there's perhaps a perception that is held amongst many folks that there's lots of rules, but like I can get away with it. And I think it's a really dangerous position to take at this point in time. And I think the recent activity that we've seen is just a reminder that actually, you know, you're not going to get away with it at the end of the day. And that the regulatory bodies aren't just there to write fancy rules and sit in rooms. They're there to act, and they're there to act on behalf of consumers and protect consumers. And I think net that's positive for the industry, because it creates a sense of clarity for sure. But I think we're going to see more of it, to be honest. I think we're going to see more of it. I think we're going to see more clampdown on, you know, companies who aren't abiding by the regulatory guidance or the rules. I think we're going to see more things coming in from different jurisdictions. I think some jurisdictions are just quite ahead on consumer protection. Like we spoke about California, we've spoken about Germany. They're two examples of jurisdictions that are really at the frontier of sort of defining what a good digital consumer experience looks like. And I think we'll see a lot more jurisdictions follow. So I think it's going to become more commonplace, not less.
So it's like it creates more clarity on the market, what we can do and what we can. Yeah,
I think it does. I think like it's interesting because the rules always existed. Yeah. Well, they didn't always exist, but they've over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen more and more of them come into place. And I think seeing that the regulatory bodies aren't just there to write rules, but also to intervene when they feel like the market isn't abiding by the rules is a really important piece of clarity for people in the industry, for sure.
Yeah. So should we expect some like new regulations, new rules from regulators, like something like one click cancel, one click to cancel?
I think so. Yeah, I think we should expect more of that, not less. And again, those things already exist in some jurisdictions, and I think we'll see more jurisdictions roll out very similar rules.
Yeah. And speaking of like click to cancel law, how did it affect like the subscription businesses? If did you see any effect of that? Like that, like it's lower the volumes and some increased churn.
Yeah, I think I don't have the data in front of me, but we definitely saw some impact, but I wouldn't say it was major, right? I think it really depends on the type of business as well. Again, I think companies that were operating in the right manner, who were deploying cancellation experiences in a way that wasn't misleading or deceptive, I think have seen not much change from a churn perspective. But definitely, there are definitely some companies that are. I think like one-click cancellation, like in California, I think in Germany as well, don't quote me on that. But like these rules that are coming out require you to have a clearly labeled cancellation option throughout the cancellation flow. So you can cancel at any time and you're not allowed to deploy a dark pattern, but you're still allowed to deploy a multi-step experience, right? So you can still deploy an experience that has a number of steps, as long as you maintain the ability for that user to cancel at any given time throughout that step. So is it going to increase churn? Yes, of course it is for some companies, but for the companies that were already operating in a way that was, pretty transparent and honest, I think the impact of it is less.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I think that like click to cancel rule mostly could affect like the companies who exploited like this in very very bad manner, like with like requiring users to have a call with a support agent to cancel the subscription, not just like one click way to cancel subscription. So it's like it's too aggressive mechanics. So, but yeah, as you can see, the majority of the like the players in the market that we working with, they use like cancellation flow with a way like cancel subscription by clicking the button. It's multi steps funnel, multi steps flow, but you can cancel without like having a call or having like a long chat with a support agent or something like this.
Exactly right. Like I've signed up to subscriptions. This wasn't recently. I remember a couple of years ago I signed up to a subscription online, and the only way to cancel was to call them.
It's
that is insane. That is insane.
Right. One more compliance stuff that I wanted to discuss with you. It's like chargeback prevention, chargeback, they like dispute and fraud rate. And Visa and MasterCard introduce recently like more and more ways to make it harder to work around these rules. Like inventing like fraud rate, VAMP, or something like this.
VAMP.
What do you say? Like, what do you think? How would it impact on the market? And is it like something that like affected Paddle in some way or your customers?
I just think it's getting. I think Visa and MasterCard are clamping down on companies that have a high chargeback rate. It's not the case in every scenario, but usually a high chargeback rate is a fraud indicator. And so, or an indicator that primarily means that the product is somehow misleading a consumer, right? So a consumer signs up to a product and the product isn't what it said on the tin. So it's very different when you actually get into it. I didn't buy this, I didn't pay for this, I need to charge back. Or when they don't recognize a transaction on their statement, which could be an indicator of fraud. So there's a bunch of reasons why chargebacks are taken very seriously via Visa and MasterCard, again, in the interest of protecting consumers and stamping out businesses who are deploying bad practices. I think the recent changes in Visa and MasterCard have just been to tighten up, right? So VAMP is the new monitoring program for Visa. It's consolidated, it's a bit tighter. I think it replaced a couple of Visa's legacy fraud programs and consolidated them into one fraud program from last year. They also tightened they tightened the threshold as well. So they have different tolerances for different chargeback rates. and so they tighten some of the thresholds. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that's what happened there. And then MasterCard has similar systems, but a little bit different. I'm not an expert in this, but again, I think it's designed to achieve the same thing, which is to clamp down on businesses with high chargeback rates. From Paddle's perspective, like we manage relationships with Visa and MasterCard and the underlying PSPs. And so we work with our customers to maintain chargeback rates. So we have our own chargeback monitoring program. And we're now actually surfacing chargeback data in our dashboard as well. So if you're a Paddle customer, you can see where you are from a chargeback perspective, which is great. And I think, ultimately, if your chargeback rate is too high for too long, like it will compromise your business because you can get kicked off the payment rails, right? What we do or how we approach it is very much early identity and working on prevention. So if we identify a climbing chargeback rate early, we can act on it sooner, and we can deploy different types of mechanics in order to combat the chargeback rate. So a good example is pre-billing notifications. So we can introduce notifications before renewals to tell people that a renewal is coming up, and then that will typically increase the cancellation rate, but at least it's not showing up as a chargeback. Now, we won't deploy that for companies that don't have a chargeback problem unless we're required to do so by law. But there are a bunch of different mechanics that we've built into our program in order to help companies fight a high chargeback rate or a growing chargeback rate. And then also how you think about refunds and acting on chargeback warnings is a key part of this as well. So Paddle as a company, we absorb some of the scheme pressure, right? As a merchant of record, as I mentioned earlier, we are taking liability for that transaction. So there is a degree of protection that you get as a merchant using Paddle. But all that being said, like we are still monitoring chargeback rates on a seller by seller basis, and we are still acting on a seller basis in order to combat those chargeback rates and trying to do that in a way that helps them sort of build sustainable businesses and sort of reduce those rates and make sure that they're coming down. But yeah, like I think again, it's a similar message to what's happening with regulatory bodies. Like the regulatory bodies are clamping down on consumer protection, as we've seen. And I think Visa and MasterCard are probably to a degree reacting to that as well and going, hey, we need to pull our weight as well, consolidate some of these programs, change the thresholds, and make sure, we're stamping out this sort of behavior from merchants.
Yeah, I think it's a great strategy. So you help your customers to be aware of like the dispute rate and fraud rate where they are in this level, and so they can do something with that, because it's like it's mutual interest to be compliant, to be like in safe in terms of risk metrics.
Exactly.
Thank you for breaking down. We have two questions in the chat. The first one from Anna: given how quickly the market is evolving, what's something that worked really well in Web2App funnels just 6 months ago, but no longer works today? What's
probably one for you, Andre. You know more about you're all over this.
I think that like introductory offers that I mentioned when you provided a discount for the first payment. It's like I see that the market, the more and more companies are getting rid of this mechanic and just selling the subscription with like a constant discount, like for just discount for lifetime, or just selling the subscription without any discounts. Because introductory offers, like for some products, for some audience, they decreasing the renewal rates. This is what we discussed with you right now, that it's important to measure the whole funnel, including retention. So probably it increases conversion rate in the checkout for you, but in overall, in like longer LTV, it could be not so beneficial. Also, paid trials were really popular, but it's probably not like 6 months ago. But like 1 year ago, probably in 2 years ago, paid trials were more popular, and now like more and more companies start selling subscription right away without any trials, no free trials, no paid trials. Do you want to add something?
No, I think I'd agree. I'd agree with all of those.
Okay. Another question from Alex. You've talked a lot about the importance of experimentation. If you could only run just one test in this quarter, what would it be?
That's a great question. I think like we obviously FunnelFox and Paddle work together because you guys do funnels and paywalls and we do payments. So like from a payments perspective, I think like price points and like regional price points especially is one. But like I also know that from a paywall perspective, like copy, CTA, social proof, different like there's so much stuff you can experiment there. But I think from a payments perspective, it's pricing more than anything. What would you say it is from like a paywall perspective?
Yeah, first thing that I would do, I would estimate what's working for the market, what the other players tested, and what are the other players adopted. So, for example, if you can take the funnels of your biggest competitor and just compare what changed in their funnels over the months, year, etc. But usually, I would bet on the biggest changes on the funnel with probably more risks, but with like expecting more benefits from that. And I would try to add some functionality to the funnel, depending on the product, of course. But if you can add some functionality on the funnel, so it could be not just squeeze, but more as a like product. So, for example, it could be for photo and video app. It could be like uploading photo and applying effects right on the funnel. For fashion app, it could be like taking selfie, or for house apps, like for example for face yoga or skincare, you can also like scan the face and give some like personalized recommendations to users. It's because it's convincing users a lot to try out the product because it's more personalized based on like facial features, for example, or any like something that they provided. Yeah, I would try something like this.
Yeah, makes sense. Agree.
Yeah, we have a couple of more questions regarding the AI. What's your perspective how AI is shaping the industry of mobile apps and in payments in general?
Yeah, it's a really interesting time, I think, because what's fundamentally changing, which I think is obvious, is that more people are building. So more people are building digital products.
Yeah.
But also more people are building mobile apps. But what we haven't yet seen is more consumers buying. So if you look at a graph of the number of mobile apps that are getting built and deployed on the App Store, it's up and to the right. But if you look at the number of consumers that are buying things, it's relatively flat and broadly in line with how consumer sort of subscription purchase growth has always been. So you have this proliferation of products and offerings, and then you have the same number of consumers who ultimately are trying to buy the things that you're building. And so there's almost this delta that's expanding between willingness to buy or the market and I guess the number of people who are building things and shipping them. And so we think that distribution is becoming the battleground because previously it was hard to build stuff, right? And so you could establish a technical moat pretty quickly when you, especially when you're building in complex domains. But broadly, someone can't go and replicate your product or your offering really easily, but now they can, right? So your challenge or your goal now, your primary objective, or what's make or break for your business is not, can I build the thing in a way that's compelling to users? It's actually, can I get it into the hands of users, and can I get it into the hands of users who are willing to pay? Because ultimately, if you can't do that, your ability to build a sustainable app company is diminished. And so the difficulty that we're seeing out there for founders is less about building stuff and more about distributing stuff. And so speed is critical, right? Your ability to get to market quickly, your ability to establish traction quickly is so fundamental to building a successful product. Your ability to establish flywheels, like growth flywheels, across a multitude of dimensions is super important. And so when we think about mobile apps, we think it's net positive for Web2App, because I think that more and more app developers are going to have to be multi-channel. They're going to have to diversify their revenue channels. They're going to have to look for more and more ways to find untapped audiences, which the web does. They're going to have to look for more ways to optimize their unit economics, because CAC is also going up, and compete for mindshare in the consumer market. So I think, like, very, very high level, the proliferation of building things hasn't been met by the proliferation of buying things yet. And so your ability to distribute is more important than ever. And so, like, the battleground is less technical and more distribution. And like, that's what we're seeing play out.
Yeah, more distribution leads to more, like, customers for web payments. For
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah. I think you just need to be prepared for scale and for onboarding more customers. Yeah, for sure. I would also like to emphasize this point that you mentioned, that about the for growth model and for experimentation. So it's like, it's really like be a competitive advantage. So it's not enough to build something. You need to understand what to build and understand how to tap the audience, right audience. And it's all about experimentation. Yeah,
totally. And we're also seeing more, like, I think you guys are doing some of this, but like AI native sort of funnel and paywall building, where you can run various, you can, like, your ability to experiment at scale and to deploy new experiences is so much faster than what it used to be.
Yeah. So for this purpose, we for example, we parsed all the more than 10,000 of different campaigns and funnels. So identify what works for the biggest web funnel, and we train our, like, AI agent on that. So our AI agent can, you can type it like in Lovable. You can type whatever you want, and our AI agent, like, understands the context of the web funnels and all these mechanics and stuff, and use the funnel with the best practices for you. So it's like, this is what we try to solve, that growth managers need to understand what to build and what to build properly and in the right way. So just to go quickly from 0 to 1.
Exactly.
Any more questions?
Don't think so. I think we've answered those two.
Yeah. All right. I think we can call today and wrap up. Yeah. Thank you very much, Lucas. It was a lovely conversation.
Thank you, Andrey. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.